Hey everybody, it's Ozone. It's that time again. It's time for another update, Roundup. Update 13 is out, and yeah, well, as with most other updates, it's big. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. We also had it as a surprise drop on Friday the 2nd. Historically, they've usually been out on Sundays, but considering we've been waiting for over 10 weeks for this update, the sooner the better, I say. So let's dive right in to all the goodies that this update has to offer. Two of the big changes in this update have to do with vaults, and specifically the vault objectives that we've had for a long time. The Monolith and the Cake vaults both get a revamp. So let's hop into a vault and check it out. The first objective to talk about here is the Monolith Objective. Well, now it's called a Brazier Objective. So the old monoliths as we know it are gone. And as part of this change, the bar at the top is completely reworked. No longer do you see the individual monoliths that you had to light. No, this time now you see a progression bar, much like the Elixir progression bar. And in the small print inside, you see how many of those braziers you need to light. The braziers themselves also look quite different. The brazier is almost like the base of an old monolith with a little bit of a campfire or something in the middle. But most importantly, you see the modifiers on top. This one gives 1x Copiously modifier as your positive modifier and 1x Rapid Mobs as your negative modifier. Yeah, that's right. Every brazier comes with one good and one bad modifier. And they're also found in every room. So finding them isn't the hard part anymore. No, the hard part is determining whether you want these modifiers or not. You've got to decide if you want the good modifier more than you don't want the bad modifier. So with this one, if you're not planning on doing any ores, well, maybe you pass it up and go on for another one. But when you do find one that you decide to take, you right-click it just like before, and your bar gets filled in a little bit. And then the modifiers get added to the vault. And everything that you encounter from then on has those modifiers. So it is a little bit like the Architect vaults used to be, where you could build the vault as you go along. You can go ahead and add those modifiers that you want when you find them, if you can find them. Now, I think all of the standard random modifiers can be found on braziers, but there are also some special modifiers that cannot be found anywhere else. Now, it's important to note that even though there is a brazier in every room, it's not always easy to find, kind of like this one right here. But it's still a lot easier than just spending half of the vault running around looking for the monoliths of the old way. One more really nice thing about these is it not only gives you the modifier name, but it also displays some text to tell you what it does. Because I think Onslaught might be new, but I wouldn't have known what it is, either by the icon or by the name. So this makes it abundantly clear what you're getting when you do this. Here's one of the new ones, I think. The Injured modifier, -2 hit points. Yep, you just permanently lose a full heart whenever you click this. Is it worth it? Well, that depends on if you're getting ores, I suppose, because it also adds the Copiously modifier. Once you do get all the braziers lit, you still have to exit the vault, but you also have the choice to pillage any of the other braziers that you happen to find around. So now that they've all been lit, I have this one that says I can pillage it for loot. I can gain the Injured negative modifier and possibly get something good. So you just right-click it. In this case, we got some ornate chains and some raw carbon, which isn't exactly good loot, but it can be good loot. But that's just the risk that you take when you go to pillage one of these braziers. Now, I don't know about you, I think I would have to be pretty desperate to pillage this one. -70% mana regeneration? Whew, I think most people would say that's not worth it. But let's see what we get. Oh, hey, we got a piece of armor. A nice pair of Rare Plus boots. So that's the choice you got to make. Do you put up with the bad stuff and take a chance on the good stuff, or just leave it alone? The completion crate, once you do exit, well, still looks like a monolith. But I suspect that might change soon. And as far as XP goes, well, it still yields some of the smallest XP out of any of the objectives. Next up, it's time for Cake. Or, well, Cake vaults, that is. A few updates ago, they changed the way Cake vaults worked, in that you had to find a Cake pedestal within one of the rooms, and that was the only way that you could finish the vault. You just clicked the pedestal. But they averaged about 1 in 10 rooms, and a lot of people didn't like that, myself included. So this change basically reverts that, and they put a Cake pedestal in each and every room, which is great news. I'm all for it, because I really enjoyed Cake vaults with groups of friends. They were a lot of fun. Now, whether you're with a group of friends or by yourself, you can push harder, trying to find as many cakes as possible and upping those modifiers as high as possible. Now, just as before, you have to put a seal of the confectioner onto a crystal in order to be able to access the cake vault. But unlike before, the seal of the confectioner is no longer craftable. Yeah, you have to find those. Now, the patch notes don't really say how you get seals. I would assume like treasure chests, maybe champions, vendors, and completion crates would all be things that I would expect that could potentially have them. But at the time that I'm putting this out, I don't know for certain. But if you happen to know, well, leave a comment down below. It would certainly help me out, and it could help out lots of other people as well. So let's hop into a cake vault and look at those differences. The way you find cakes in the cake vault is still exactly the same. That didn't change. You get the pink glow around your screen when you get next to the cake. And then when you right-click the cake, it consumes it and opens the way to the next thing. But notice the modifiers that get added. It's one cake layer. In the most recent version, you would get these three modifiers: delicious, sweet, anger, and heavy. So this add item quantity, rarity, this increased mob damage, and mob health. And that's effectively what this cake layer does now as well, but it's even more comprehensive. Everything gets a little bit better and a little bit harder. And like I said, there is now a cake pedestal in every room, and you can see this thing. You can see this thing from far away. It's much easier to find now than it used to be. So you can go just one room in and complete the vault, but your reward will be pretty small because the cake that you get at the end, it scales with the number of cakes found in the vault. And the patch notes say that they consider about 40 cakes to be a normal run. So if you want better loot than what they consider to be normal, you're going to have to get a whole lot more cakes. So just to see what we get after one room, let's complete the vault and just see how bad that cake is. Wow, that's pretty pathetic. Now, I didn't kill any mobs or open any chests, but 800 XP is pretty pathetic. And within the crate box, what do we get? It's YouTuber luck, I swear. It's YouTuber luck. Well, clearly you could still get an artifact, but only 4 items out of that completion crate. Wow. This is both amazing and terrible, but I would not consider this to be normal at all. The next brand new feature has to do with these things. Soul Flames. They've been in the game for quite a while, but now they have an entirely new purpose. Previously, you could add a soul flame to a crystal and get the afterlife modifier, which if you died in the vault would make you return with all of your stuff, just like Beginner's Grace. But now soul flames have an entirely different purpose. If we look at the description, it says combine with an empty level 65 plus crystal to start adding Ascension to your crystal. And it says stacks of 0. So basically the Ascension track is trying to complete as many vaults as you can consecutively. If you die or fail to complete a vault, then your Ascensions are lost and reset. But each time you leave the vault, having successfully completed it, you get your soul flame back, and the stacks on it are increased. And this is one of those things that Iskall decided to add rather late and accounts for a big part of the delay in shipping of Update 13. But as the number of stacks go up, so too does the difficulty of the vault. So eventually, you'll likely fail one way or another. And depending on how many stacks you had on your soul flame, basically depending on how far into the Ascension you were able to get, you get some Embers as a result when you finally fail to complete a vault. So then, of course, the question is, what do you do with Embers? And that's where this brand new block comes into play. The Ascension Forge. The Ascension Forge is really not so bad to craft. A block of black chromatic steel is kind of rough, but overall, 4 Echo Gems, not that bad. But remember, this is a level 65 plus feature, so I would say the cost is in accordance with the level. Now, inside the Ascension Forge, you have essentially a mini store, and you use these embers in order to buy things from the store. And you're not actually buying armor, you're buying to unlock these transmogs, or you're buying these prefix and suffixes to your title. So if I want everybody to call me Lord Ozone, I can buy that title. Just press here, and we've got ourselves a little title. I'm assuming we right-click it. Okay. But again, you don't see your own title. Oh, but it does show up in chat. Look at that. That is pretty nice. Which just underscores the whole point of this. It's not for any good rewards that will help you further the game. No, these rewards are really just about bragging rights on your server. Prefixes, transmogs, really cool stuff. I don't doubt that at all, but nothing that's going to make or break how you play the game. As this gal describes it, it's a completely opt-in feature. And I also think it's important to note that Ascension stacks do not directly translate to Embers. When you lose your progress on the Ascension, you may or may not get some Embers. And unfortunately, the patch notes don't really tell you what the distribution is. I'm sure people will figure it out, but the bottom line is it's not a one-to-one. Now, the functionality of the Soul Flame, meaning to add an afterlife modifier to your crystal, still exists. It's been moved to a new item called a Warden's Pearl. The recipe for the Warden's Pearl isn't that bad at all, a few eternal flames and some other common ingredients. But notably, no wither skeleton skull like the previous recipe. In every other regard though, the Warden's Pearl is just the same as the old Soul Flames. But those are just the big 3 items that the patch notes highlight. There are a whole bunch of smaller changes that altogether add quite a bit to the game. But before we go into the other features of the update, let me take a moment and say thanks for watching this video. Seeing all the comments about how this helps you keep up with the game changes really helps to underscore why I do this, and it really makes me feel great. So thank you so much for leaving those comments. Thanks for watching the video. Please give it a like if you think it deserves it, and please consider subscribing to the channel. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone. But now, back to the updates. One of the changes that's most exciting to me has to deal with these God Altars. You see, previously in hard mode, you had to return to the God Altar in order to finish up the challenge. But now you don't have to, no matter what your difficulty. If you do come back, well, then there's a prize waiting for you. But you don't have to. So let's see what we got. Mine Vault Ores. Easy enough. All right, see, there we got it. We got Valera's Favor already. Now let's head back and see what we get. Well, I picked it up as soon as I came by here. I've got now a Valera's token in my hand from completing it and coming back to this altar. And apparently there is no time limit. Basically, once you complete the challenge, you can come back here at any time if you so choose. So what does this thing do? It says combine with a vault crystal to add a favor from this god. So by coming back to this altar and collecting the token, it gives you the ability to automatically add Valera's Favor once again to another vault later on. And these favors can be really, really good. Time is not always on your side, of course, in the vaults, but if you can do it, I think it's probably worthwhile. But honestly, more than anything, I'm really excited about not having to come back to the God Altar in the first place. That is such a big help. But be warned though, when you do use your token on a crystal, it makes it unmodifiable. So it's intended to be the last thing that you put on there. It also prevents doing multiple tokens to get multiple god favors on the same crystal. Another big change that we have in the vaults here is right behind me, and that's a new door. These they're calling Ven-doors because they lead to little mini vendor rooms. So open it up, and what do we have? We have a mystery egg and a spicy burger, and there's always a downstairs too. Okay, we got a mod box. Is it worth 12 gold? Well, that's what you have to decide. These mini vendor rooms exist in every single common room now too. And this is all to compensate for a vendor room being very rare and hard to find. They wanted to make it easier for you to spend your gold. So as a result, all of the vendor rooms are now removed from the game, and you have to do all of your shopping in these Ven-doors instead. Again, there are always 3 pedestals, 2 upstairs and 1 downstairs, and these will exist in every common room in the vault. Another really nice feature is that there's now a way to do something with these charms that you're not going to use otherwise. This poor Windar charm has a lot of uses left, but is only a 9% affinity. So if you have better charms, well, they just tend to pile up because you can't recycle charms. So instead, they've made it so that you can add a charm to a crystal and add that affinity in on that vault run. So combining this charm with this crystal, 9 modifiers of Windar's tier. And these modifiers are stacking modifiers like the Ascension. It's an easy way to basically translate an arbitrary percentage into modifiers for the crystal. 9 tiers equals 9%. A really nice thing is that you can keep stacking them. So let's add 5 Valara tears, and then add some Idona tears, and some more Idona tears because we want lots of Idona, and then maybe the 10 ounce, and you get the idea. Now we have a lot of affinity for the Vault Gods in this Vault Crystal. So you could, in theory, make it 100% in each of the Vault Gods if you really wanted to, and if you had enough charms. One of the bigger mechanic changes in this update is affecting the trap disarm chance like you see on the jewels here. Previously, there was a trapped modifier, which would increase the number of chests that were trapped. But if you had a trap disarm chance of 100%, it didn't matter at all, they would still be completely disarmed. And that mechanic seemed a little overpowered. So now instead of a trapped modifier, there's a clumsy modifier. And the clumsy modifier reduces your trap disarm by 50%. The net effect here is that it encourages you to put more trap disarm on your tool beyond 100%. And if you get enough clumsies that your trap disarm goes to 0%, well then it starts increasing the number of trapped chests that you have in the vault. So overall, it's a pretty big change, but at the same time, it really only affects people late game trying to go for that 100% trap disarm on their tools. Another change to modifiers is that your Copiously now can go above 100%. So previously, if you had more than 100% copious on your tool, it would cap out at 100%, but now it just has that bigger percent and you'll get even more gems from the ores that you break. So yes, it's another way to encourage you to put more copious on your tool, even beyond 100%. There is also another new block added to the game. It is this one right here, which looks better from the top than the bottom, and it's called the Animatrix. The Animatrix only function is purely aesthetic. Popping it down on the ground doesn't do anything by itself, but if you take a hostile spawn egg and put it on there, it displays the mob in a projection of sorts. Obviously, this evoker isn't doing anything, it's just here for show. But it is an interesting way to use some of those extra hostile mob eggs, or maybe if your base has a particular theme, it can help to add to that theme, or maybe even just add some life to your base with some of these unusual decorations. The Animatrix block isn't all that hard to craft either. It is a block of Vault Diamonds and some oxidized ancient copper blocks, which may be the harder resource to get. That ancient copper seems to be fairly rare in those chests. Another small change that can have a big impact is dealing with the Lucky Altar expertise. Previously, it would reduce the crafting recipe on your crystal by 90%, but now it makes it completely free. I've always felt Lucky Altar really wasn't all that valuable, but that makes it just a little bit more so in my book. Another big improvement here is that champions will now have a more limited number of extra abilities. Previously, you could get champions that had up to 3 extra abilities, so now they'll have between 0 and 1 depending on your difficulty level. Hard mode always gets 1, easy always gets 0, and normal is random. Another minor change is that slimes do not always give off a poison cloud when they've been killed, which is actually really nice. One more change that kind of unifies things is that the modifiers on our vault weapons now no longer reference mob types. Well, they reference the vault mod types. So this one has an additional 10% damage to tank mobs and an additional 7% to dweller type mobs, which Iskal said people were a little confused by and didn't understand, so it brings the vault weapons in alignment with the vault mob types. Interestingly though, the Masteries group of talents still work on the mob types, Nether, Undead, Arthropod, and Illager. Will those change sometime soon? Well, who knows? We'll have to wait for the next update, I suppose. And lastly, you won't be able to find blank inscriptions in the vaults anymore. Now, you're going to have to craft them with the old inscription table like we had been able to in the past. But it's always been my understanding, or at least since the feature was first released, that crafted blank inscriptions were worse than the blank inscriptions that you could find in the vaults. And the patch notes don't say whether this has been rectified or not. I think part of the problem was that they felt like you were getting too many of them, but I think this is going to have the opposite effect right now. I think there's going to be too few of them. So I expect this to get tweaked and balanced later on in further updates. And now it's time for a couple smaller quality of life improvements that this patch brings to us. This is another minor change that they've made. It now shows you what kind of vault that you survived from. And when you go into the vault as well, it shows you the top vault type. On a single-player world, I don't know that this makes any difference, but on a multiplayer world, it can be really nice. If you particularly like elixir-type vaults, and you see that someone has gone into an elixir, well, maybe that makes you want to join them just a little bit more. Anyway, it's a nice quality of life improvement. Another quality of life improvement has to do with the skill points and knowledge points header that we have in the upper right corner here. Now you can turn those off. The options are a little bit hidden though, honestly. So first you got to go into options and then accessibility, and then you have a Vault Hunter's options, and you can show point messages on or off. So now with those pesky texts gone, the screen looks a little bit cleaner. Another new thing that you can toggle is rarity names, and this applies to the vendor pedestals in the Ven-door rooms. So now with that option toggled, we can see that it says it's a common plus vault legging or a rare plus vault legging as we're looking at these items on the vendor pedestals. Because for some people, seeing the colors just isn't enough to tell them what rarity an item is. You know, maybe they don't have experience, or maybe color blindness has an effect. So being able to show the rarity on those pedestal items is also a really nice quality of life improvement. Another quality of life improvement deals with the pylons right here. If you're anything like me, I just run up and grab them and don't really pay much attention to what they say. And yeah, it says when you point at them, but now when you click it, it also says it in the chat. Very nice. And even though the patch notes don't call it out, there are even more quality of life improvements here in the Divine Paradox. Notice the door behind me also has wording descriptions of what the modifiers are that happen when you buy this door. So this library room has 2 shortened and 2 angry mob modifiers associated with it. Previously, you only saw the icons and you had to go look them up, which was one of my bigger complaints about the Divine Paradox, because like a lot of folks out there, I don't think everybody has those little icons memorized, so just seeing them on the door, again, a really nice quality of life improvement. And now I want to debunk a couple of expected changes that didn't happen after all. Now, Iskall did say somewhere that as part of this update, he would remove scav hunts as a normal objective that can be obtained. Well, I got a scav hunt here, and so that didn't happen. I don't really remember if it was said it was targeted for another update, but I thought it was said to be part of Update 13, and I know other people have repeated it as if it were fact and expected, so this is just proving that it did in fact not happen. Another expected change deals with these guys behind me, alligator snapping turtles. At some point, it was announced that they would be removed from the game, and everyone was expecting it to be as part of this update, but that has not happened yet either. The reason that's going to be removed from the game, as I understand it, is that they will attack the hostile mobs as likely as they'll attack the player, and that was something that the team didn't really want. But for now, they're still here. And as always, there are a host of other smaller bug fixes and changes. You can always go check out the patch notes yourself. This time, they're posted on their webpage, vaulthunters.gg. I also want to take the opportunity to announce that I've finally been able to get a Discord server set up. The link is in the description down below. So join us over there. Tell me all the things that I get wrong in the video. Share the latest leaks about what's coming down the pipe. Commiserate about the delays of the next update coming out. And get to know my family. I want to give special thanks to my daughter Zelaine, who set up the Discord for us. But that's it. That's all for now. I really hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I'm sorry I'm a little late with it. The Friday drop kind of caught me off guard, and my schedule just didn't allow me to make the video as quickly as I like to. But thanks for watching to the end, and remember, be excellent to each other. I'm out.